Thank you everyone for being here. It's great to see so many friends, so many familiar faces, and some new folks as well. True to that generous introduction, we're going to give a brief overview of human nature and human behavior. We're then going to talk about how advisors are doing in addressing the specifics of human behavior. And then I'm going to give you 4 concrete things that we are working on at Orion to try and address the human behavior and humanize financial planning. But I want to start a little bit. We're going to start. I'm a touchy-feely guy. I'm a shrink, and we're going to start by talking about what a miracle you all are. Okay. So I want you to do something for me tonight. I want you to go outside tonight, and when you look up in the sky, I want you to know that for every single star in the sky, there is a human being that has gone before you. There's about 100 billion stars in the sky. There's about 107 billion people that have ever lived. There's 15 people who have passed on for each one of us that's here today. And yet for all of that, you and all of your clients are absolutely unique in the sea of humanity. 100 billion other people, and yet you are the only person who has felt what you felt and thought what you've thought and experienced what you have experienced. A little help with the slides, please. Okay. The party rolls on. So let's talk about the seat of this uniqueness, though. The seat of this uniqueness is actually your brain, right? The seat of this uniqueness is your brain, and it starts really early. Because even in utero, check these numbers out. In utero, you are developing 250,000 neuronal connections per second. When you are in the womb, right? You are on your way to 1,000 trillion neurons, the most you will ever have. You'll lose them over your life, but you come out with 1,000 trillion neurons, and when you emerge, you will be 5% of your future size, but your brain will be 1/3 of its size, and over the next 90 days, it will grow in size 55%, and it will wing information through your mind at 250 miles per hour. Why all this complex hardware? Why do we need all this stuff? Well, we need it to do what humankind does best. And what does humankind do best? Some people say it's opposable thumbs. Apes got opposable thumbs. Some people say it's communication. Bees communicate, dolphins communicate, whales communicate. It's none of those things. The thing that we do best, and the reason you have all this complex hardware, is because the thing that we do best is mirror each other. And we develop complex human interactions. And we mirror each other, and we believe in something called functional fictions. Functional fictions are things that aren't physically real, but we act as though they are real, right? Consider money, right? Consider the thing that we are all here to talk about, money. These little green pieces of paper that we spend our lives toiling and sweating for have no inherent basis in reality, and yet we act as though they do, and we give them power. And it's because of these functional fictions that we're able to build great civilizations and religions and create art. But there is a downside to this as well. Because the downside to this is when your whole species is based around believing in things that don't exist, some problems can tend to emerge, right? And we are working with some really, really old hardware here. Your brain hasn't had an upgrade in 150,000 years, but the markets we are attempting to navigate are 400 years old. So we have iPhone 1 brains with a cracked screen and a dead battery trying to navigate iPhone 14 markets. And we fall short and we panic because we look to other people. Because your brain accounts for 2 to 3% of your body weight, but 20 to 25% of your caloric expenditure in a day. And so because of this, you are always looking to think less. You are always looking to draft or coast off of other people, and so you can panic, like the people in this extremely cheesy video, right? You can panic, you can herd, and you can turn your discretion over to other people. So what does this have to do with anything? What does this have to do with the work of an advisor? Well, let's talk about this thing that we do so well, which is mirror other humans and believe in functional fictions, the greatest of which is money. Money is the greatest functional fiction of all, and it wreaks particular havoc on our mind and our behavior. The American Psychological Association has studied stressors, what is stressing the American public. I'm 42 years old and they've studied it every year since I was born. Guess what number one is every single year? Money. Guess what number 2 and 3 are? Work and the economy. So your number one stressor is money. The number 2 stressor is the place where you make your money. The number 3 stressor is the place where you spend your money. We are so sideways with money. We have such trouble with this, right? And money has a particular hold on us. I wrote a book called The Behavioral Investor, and in that book, I came across some research that looked at the excitatory power of different sorts of conversations. So they would hook people up to brain scan imaging machines, fMRIs, right? And they would talk to them about sex and death and religion and politics and money, all these hot button issues that we aren't supposed to talk about in polite company. But more than sex, more than death, more than religion, money had the most excitatory power of all. More than sex, more than death, more than religion, your brain is firing and going crazy when you talk about money. So what does this mean for us as an industry? It means that we are the stewards and the guardians of the thing that our clients have the most trouble with. We sit and counsel with them about these intimate conversations, their number one stressors, the thing that drives them crazy, the thing that excites them more than anything under the sun, and we are blowing it. We are not doing well. If you look at the Edelman Trust Barometer, we are the second least trusted industry in the world, ahead of only social media. Come on, guys. Like, we can do better. I know, right? We can do better than that. We can do better than Twitter. We can do better than Facebook. A Forbes study found that we were between members of Congress and car salespeople in terms of how trusted we are. People don't trust us. And this shocking stat, almost 2/3 of people who work with an advisor, almost 2/3 said they had no one to speak to about money. Think about how sad this is. We are the guardians, the counselors of this number one most perplexing thing in their lives, and we are not doing a great job. But we are making inroads. And over the past few years, we have seen a move away from the sort of relentless product focus that I think got us some of these bad ratings in the first place. And we've begun to focus on things like planning-centric approaches and goals-based investing and behavioral finance. But even the behavioral finance conversation has become sort of two-dimensional. Because for so many folks, behavioral finance is all about keeping your clients from making a handful of mistakes that fall on some giant bias chart by white-knuckling through every difficult conversation and fighting their human nature. But I want to talk about 4 ways that we're applying behavioral finance at Orion and talk about how I think there's a better and a different way. So this is a picture of my family. You can ooh and ah if you'd like, right? This is a picture of my family. And I put this up here to dispel one of the popular myths about behavioral finance. One of the things that we think we have to do in behavioral finance is to rid people of emotion, right? We don't want you to be emotional. You need to be a logical decision maker, think through things, and be emotionless. Wrong. There are times when that is what is indicated. There are times when that is the right thing to do, but there are other times when we can roll with the human tendency to be emotional and have better outcomes. One of the things that we're doing at Orion is a program called Protect, Live, Dream, where we introduce emotion into the approach strategically to try and bring about good decisions. How does this happen? Research shows the following. When people were prompted with a picture of their children, they saved twice as much as a control group. When people were reminded in real time of their goals with something visceral, with something salient like a picture of a goal or a picture of the thing that they were working for, they were 10 times less likely to go to cash and liquidate their accounts. All of this is emotion, right? All of this is totally irrational from a behavioral sense. It's totally irrational that seeing a picture of your kids which leads you to save twice as much money. But can we exploit that irrationality? Can we use it to our own benefit? Absolutely, and we ought to. Wherever possible, we should be rolling with human emotion and not fighting against it. A second thing that we can do is add value beyond dollars and cents, add value where we haven't historically added value. One of the ways that we are trying to do this, I see some of my friends from Canada. Shout out Calgary, Alberta. What's up? Okay. I see some of my friends from Canada where I started this research and we're furthering it at Orion. We did research into love and money because I want you to consider the following statistics. In marriages, the number one most fought about thing is, you guessed, oh my goodness, is money, right? Two-thirds of couples say their partner spends too much money and that it is hurting the relationship. 1/3 of millennials say that they fight about money every single week. And 12% of couples say that they have never, ever once had a conversation about money, okay? Couples and money, love and money is a big problem. So with my friends in Canada and now at Orion, we have done research into what do couples fight about when they fight about money, right? We did research into this and we created an assessment and a report and a whole structure to allow advisors to have conversations about it. I'll fill you in. The number one thing that couples fight about when they fight about money is whether you should use that money to secure the future or to enjoy today. What's the right answer there? Should we secure the future or should we enjoy today? Both, right? Both. But we have to have the right tools to measure that, and we have to have the bravery to introduce something like this into a conversation, even when it doesn't tie directly to product. Another thing that we're doing is through our educational efforts is trying to give advisors better tools for having conversations with their clients. Because we know that about 40% of Americans receive some form of financial advice, but less than half of them take that advice as it is prescribed. One of the leading causes of death in this country is medical non-compliance. So people who have been to a doctor, received a prescription, and don't take it. People dying of non-compliance, people dying of behavioral issues in a land full of plenty and an advanced scientific regime, right? The same thing is happening in our planning sessions, that we are telling folks the right things to do, and they aren't always following through. So we are researching and have just released a 6-part process for how to have conversations with your clients that stick. And I don't have time to go through all of it here, but I'll talk about one of the things that we introduced here. One of the things that we found is around normalization. You know, we found that a lot of times when people were bringing a behavioral consideration to their advisor, the advisor would immediately try and bat it down, right? And immediately try and bat it down and say, hey, no, you can't do that, right? This is why you can't do that. This doesn't make sense. You need to do otherwise. And what we found is a deepening of non-compliance and people feeling dismissed. So what we found that you have to do is display empathy and show enough understanding to understand why that behavior makes sense. Not every behavior is good, right? Not every behavior is adaptive or supports what someone wants to do from a goals perspective, but every behavior makes sense with appropriate context. And with appropriate context, you can appreciate that person's worldview. You can understand where they're coming from. You can articulate that to them. And once you've done that, you're in a much better position to give advice that sticks. The last thing that I want to talk about actually came from a conversation I had on my podcast. So I have a podcast that I hope you will all tune into. It's called Standard Deviations. I've interviewed a number of the people in this crowd, Brian Portnoy, Danny Fava, lots of other smart people in this crowd have been on the show before. But I had a conversation with a woman called Natalie Taylor, and she shared some research around goals versus values. Now, I wrote a whole book about goals-based investing. So you could say that I'm sort of bought in and that I like goals-based investing, but she poked some holes in that thesis. Because what she shared was that when you ask someone about their financial goals, you tend to get responses that are highly mimetic, right? That are based on what other people are doing. Your neighbor just got a boat, so now you want a boat. Right? We also see people giving vague sort of round number answers. I want $1 million. I want $2 million, $5 million, that are totally disconnected from who they are and what they value. So what Natalie taught me and what we're running with at Orion, thanks to this chart from Jeremy Walter, by the way, Twitter is a great place to find your slides. What we found is that values are far more enduring. And when we ask about values first, we get much more meaningful goals, right? So for example, someone might have a value for freedom, right? And that value for freedom is not going anywhere. That is a deeply held value. That's not going anywhere. There is a financial goal that ties to that freedom. Maybe it's I need $3 million to have the financial flexibility to do the things that I want to do, but you have to start with values. So one of the things that we're doing at Orion and that we will be introducing into our planning process is starting with values. We're doing a national survey right now to get a universe of values where we can start with values and then move to more specific goals after that. So I've been a little tough, perhaps, on the state of things, but now let me ease up a little bit in closing. We are headed in the right direction, and this conference is an indication of that. You know, I hope you've enjoyed my remarks. I hope you'll go check out Morgan Housel's remarks on the psychology of money. I hope you go check out Brian Portnoy's remarks and see what him and his team at Shaping Wealth are doing. We are heading in the right direction. Right? We are heading in the right direction to humanize the world of financial planning, but we still have work to do. And so I hope you've taken this as a bit of a rallying cry to test some of your sacred, deeply held assumptions, to be experimental and to think deeply about why people do the things that they do, and not be afraid to question old ways of doing things. Our industry is headed in the right direction. We have further to go, but it's people like you who are going to plant the seeds of where we ought to be, to humanize the profession. People who work with advisors, we know they do better financially, but there's also research to show that they're happier, they're better prepared for an emergency, and they even have better marriages and marital communications. So as you adopt some of these practices, you can shape behavior. This behavior shapes wealth, and that wealth can change lives. So if you've enjoyed these things, I'd invite you to check this out. We have free CE courses, absolutely free. You can get your whole CFP year taken care of by learning all about our behavioral coaching and other programs. I hope you'll continue to invest in furthering the profession and humanizing the world of planning. Thank you so much.